In this video, we're going to use proportional reasoning to solve algebraic and geometric problems. First, we need to know what a ratio is. A ratio compares quantities. For example, I could have 4 girls for every 5 boys. Equivalent ratios are really equivalent fractions. They're ratios that have the same proportion to each other when put in simplest form. An example would be 8 girls for every 10 boys. These two are equivalent ratios because they're equal when in simplest form. Now let's take what we learned about ratios and equivalent fractions and talk about similar triangles. Two triangles are similar if the sides increase or decrease by the same ratio and the angles stay the same. Sides that match are called corresponding sides. You can tell they correspond because they are in between the same angle, even if the triangles are flipped or rotated. We can tell if angles match if they have the same pattern of notch marks. For example, this one has 1 notch mark, and so does this one. This one has 3 notch marks, and so does this one. So these are corresponding sides. Here's another set of corresponding sides. We can use corresponding sides to find missing sides on similar triangles and other similar shapes and figures. Let's go through an example of finding missing sides of similar triangles together. When you do this, we're going to set up 2 equivalent ratios. One with the little triangle and one with the big triangle. I like to start with the triangle that has the missing side, since we know we're going to need that corresponding side that matches the variable. So I'm going to put x over 9. Now we know we're setting up equivalent ratios. So I'm going to put an equal sign in between my 2 ratios. Now let's look and see what corresponds to x. X is in between the angle with 1 line and the angle with 2 lines. So find the side on the little triangle that is in between the angle that has 1 line and the angle that has 2 lines. That's 4. So because 4 corresponds with x and x is in the numerator, I'm going to put 4 in the numerator. Now find the side that corresponds with 9. 9 is in between the angle with 1 line and the angle with 3 lines. On the little triangle, which side is in between the 1 line and the 3 lines? 6 is. So 6 corresponds to 9. Since 9 is in the denominator, I'm going to put 6 in the denominator. The next step is to cross multiply. So we have 6 times x, and that's going to equal 9 times 4. 9 times 4 is 36. So we have 6x equals 36. We can solve for x by dividing by 6 on both sides. That leaves us with x equals 6. So we know the missing side of that bigger triangle is 6. Now we can use what we learned about similar triangles to find the length of CE. Since we're looking for CE, I'm going to put a variable x there. We have 2 parallel lines. Because we have 2 parallel lines, we know that we have angle relationships. First, the angles opposite of C are going to be congruent because they are vertical angles. I put a line on each of these angles to show that they are equal. Next, we know that this angle and this angle are opposite interior angles, which means they are congruent. And I'm going to put 2 lines showing that they're equal. This angle and this angle are also going to be congruent because they are also alternate interior angles. So I'm going to put 3 marks showing that they're equal. Now that we know the angles that correspond, we can use that to make our equivalent ratios. We need to start with the little triangle because that has the variable that we're missing. The 2 sides we have are x and 3. Now we need to match up the corresponding sides. X is the side that's in between the 1 mark and the 2 mark. And 4 is in between the 1 mark and the 2 mark. So x and 4 correspond. X is in the numerator, so 4 must go in the numerator. Now we're going to look at which side corresponds with 3. 3 is in between the side that has 1 mark and 3 marks, and 5 is as well, so 5 corresponds with 3. Now we can cross multiply 4 times 3 and set that equal to x times 5. 4 times 3 is 12, and x times 5 is 5x. To get x by itself, we need to divide by 5, and what we do to one side, we must do to the other. That leaves us with x, and 12 divided by 5 is 2.4. That means that side CE is going to equal 2.4.